Good evening. Am I audible to everybody?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Good
sir.
evening, sir.
Okay, thank you. Give me a second, please. Can everybody see the presentation, please? Can you all see the presentation?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, very good. Hope you can hear me. Let's try to understand the risk management part in supply chains, or how to build resilience in supply chains. Hope you can see a graph here. Can everybody see a graph? Can you all see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is a situation actually sometime back. Petroleum Corporation. So way back in 2007, they hedge, commodity. One of the procurement specialist. One of the mechanisms of buying commodities is you hedge. You are hedging the commodity prices, and you are hedging if you want to buy dollars even in the future. You can hedging. So they hedge some quantities somewhere around 2000, maybe July, somewhere here. Abhi hitamuko. To hedge it at these particular prices, say about $89 per barrel, you hedge. But actually hedging was done at the rate of somewhere around $100. May hari hedge kara. The market prices, the trend analysis shows it will be hitting actually 210. It will be the price increase continuously. The trend shows up to $210 per barrel. It will be the increase shows that amount by the time 2008 June. So by the time 2008 June, somewhere here, the prices to hit $2,210. So Sri Lankan Petroleum Corporation hedge some oil quantities at the rate of say $100, and the required amount of dollars were hedged. Dollars were also hedged through Citibank and HSBC. But what happened? By 2008 June, you can see it started crashing down. Instead of going up to 210, what OPEC countries, they released large amount of oils to the market, then oil prices were crashed back to 32. Crashed back to 32. From it increased up to 146. From $146 per barrel, it crashed back to 32. Then what happened to our hedging? So by 2008, so we were to purchase our hedge quantities at the rate of $110 we hedge, but the market price is now only 32. Although market price is 32, we had to buy at the rate of 100 because we had entered into a contract and we had hedged even the dollars. So this was a big issue, and sometimes this was highlighted in the political stage as well at that time. But the politicians, they don't know any theory, any background to this. So they just highlighted on the stage, blaming the governments. But this is what happened. Now hedging has this particular risk anyway. Knowing that risk only, you are going to hedge all these commodities and the dollars and all these currencies. Now this is the risk factor. This is the risk factor coming from the market. The market prices are not stable. You can't keep it steady because it depends on the supply and demand. So the behavior of the OPEC countries, they release almost all the oil stocks at once to the market, and market got crashed. So these are the risk factors. These are the risk factors coming from the market. And you can see so many risk factors in the past. There were short supplies of goods, gas, and fuel some time back. Although we had the ships, gas and fuel prices, ships came to Sri Lanka. They were staying around Sri Lanka, anchoring in the anchorage, but we didn't have money to buy those. We didn't have money to unload those petrol and gas containers or petrol and gas, the fuel supplies. The ships were there, but we didn't have money. Today it is the other way around. That's also different case. So you can see we were in the queues of gas, queues of petrol, days and days. The market shortages of market supplies, shortage of the current situations, economic crisis of the country. And today is a big discussion. This is what happened on Easter Sunday. Easter Sunday attacks, terrorist attacks, tsunami in 2004. What happened to Perera and the train and the whole country around in the coastal line? You have tsunamis, cyclones, tornadoes. So all these are certain factors coming from different sources disrupting the supply chain activities. Disrupting supply chain activities. So therefore, you have threats. So these threats are basically disrupting the supply chains. It is a threat or hazard. When you expose to the hazards, when the hazard is there, when the threat is there on your pathway, you are exposed then. When you are exposed to the threat or hazard, there will be some level of vulnerability. Vulnerability. So vulnerability has two aspects. The frequency of happening it, or the likelihood of happening is. Likelihood of happening. And if it happens, what will be the consequences or the impact? Consequences of the impact. Those are the two things vulnerability will have. So vulnerability, it is basically what is the frequency or the likelihood of happening it. frequency or likelihood of happening it. And if it happens, what will be the consequences or the impact? So the likelihood of happening is the probability. Consequences is the impact or the severance that you will get because of that event. So these two together, we call it risk. Then we have a risk then. So the risk basically is in other words, it is the uncertainty. Whatever we are going to do, whatever we do, we will have some level of uncertainty. Uncertainty may be high, uncertainty may be low. So uncertainty and the risk factor. Uncertainty itself refers to the likelihood of happening it. So that is the probability as we discussed. And if it happens, what will be the consequences? So that will be the severity. And probability into severity is the risk. That is the risk factors. So all these factors that you identify, what are the factors that you identify? What is the probability of crashing oil prices again? So what is the probability of having a tsunami again? What is the probability of having Vito again? So all these will have some level of likelihood happening it, probability, and if it happens, there will be some kind of impact, and that what will be the severity of the outcome, what will be the severity of the impact. Therefore, we need to understand, we need to manage when we do projects, when we do supply chain activities, we need to understand what level of risk factor what we have. And if the risk factor is very high, we should be able to take actions to mitigate. We should be able to take actions to mitigate. Otherwise, no point. Otherwise, no point understanding risk factors and all. If you are not implementing to mitigate it, some strategies need to be developed and implemented to manage the risk. And that is called then risk management in supply chain. So risk, when it comes to risk management, it is systematically setting the best course of action under uncertainty. How? By identifying and assessing and understanding. You have to identify the risk factor. Just because you identified the risk factor, you don't know the severity of it. You don't know the impact properly. Therefore, each and every risk factor you have to assess. You have to assess. Then you have a big picture, complete picture of about each and every risk factor. Then you have to act on that. You have to develop actions to mitigate the risk factor. You can't just keep it. When you develop the action plan, you can't just keep it. You have to communicate it to all the relevant people and implement it. So that is how risk can be addressed and risk can be managed. So that if you go by the steps of risk management, first of all, you have to identify the risk factors. Then you have to assess it. Then you have to develop actions. Then you have to implement. And you have to manage. Implement and manage. Those are the basic steps of risk factors. And we were discussing about resiliency or the resilience.
Sir, excuse me.
Yes, please.
Sir, excuse me. Sir, is it possible you to give some example how to calculate that risk factor?
I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that.
Okay, okay, sir.
Okay. Good question. Thank you. I'm coming to that. So, what is resilience then? It is the maybe a person, maybe an organization, a person or an organization, to what extent you can tolerate a particular event or ability to accommodate threats or risk factors. To what degree you can accommodate the risk factors. Suppose you get floods. You have a maybe centralized warehouse in Kalani area, Sedavat area. There are so many organizations where they have got their warehouses in that area. So you are getting floods. At least 2 times a year, you are getting floods. So when you analyze, now you are in the rainy season, monsoon, and normally by this time, there is a risk factor that this area will be flooded. But you will understand, you will get, if you have identified that this year you are getting floods as per the forecast, as per the learnings, maybe 3 feet on the road. So, but so far it has not happened. Say you are getting only 6 inches on the road, floods you got, but only 6 inches. You can just ignore it. What is it? 6 inches flood, nothing. But you get 2 feet, 3 feet flood on the road. Then you can't just ignore. You have to make some arrangement. If there are critical deliveries and all, maybe you'll have to hire a tractor. You're getting 5 feet, flood on the road. 5 feet. Then maybe you'll have to hire some boats. Likewise. But you are not going to stop your business activities. You can tolerate. You can absorb. You have the ability to accommodate whatever way. And that is called resiliency. So people and organize people also, you should be able to develop some resilience. Organization also, you should be able to accommodate in the organizations. Organizations also should have the capability to accommodate some level of risk factors. So developing organizations can be developed to accommodate higher level of risk factors, and that is called resiliency. So it can be tsunamis, it can be various other factors. One thing, when I visited Japan in this for the third time, so we were taken to we were taken to show some building construction sites. මේක site එකට ගියාම they had been digging it to the rock. Rock එකට යනකම් දැන් මේ area surface එක නම් මේ site එක මේක rock එකට යනකම් හාරලා. rock එකට යනකම්. ඊළඟට මේ rock එකට ඒගොල්ලෝ දානවා ලොකු කොන්ක්‍රීට් එකක්. මේ rock එකට එකත් විදලා මේ කොන්ක්‍රීට් එක ඇන්කර් කරනවා. මේක අඩි 50 60ක් යට වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ලොකු කොන්ක්‍රීට් එක rock එකට ඇන්කර් කරලා මේ කොන්ක්‍රීට් එකට ෆික්ස් කරන ලොකු ස්ප්‍රින්ග්ස්. ඔය විදිහට දිගටම ලොකු ස්ප්‍රින්ග්ස් ෆික්ස් කරලා මේ කොන්ක්‍රීට් එක උඩ එතකොට ස්ප්‍රින්ග්ස් උඩ තව කොන්ක්‍රීට් එකක් දානවා. So this is a concrete springs, again the second concrete. මේ කොන්ක්‍රීට් එකකට මේ ස්ප්‍රින්ග්ස් ටික ෆික්ස් කරනවා. ෆික්ස් කරලා ඉල මේ කොන්ක්‍රීට් එක උඩ තමයි තට්ටු 50 60 70 100 බිල්ඩින් එක හදන්නේ. තට්ටු 50 60 70 බිල්ඩින් එක හදන්නේ මේ දෙවනි කොන්ක්‍රීට් එක උඩ. එතකොට earth, because this area is earthquake prone. හැමතිස්සම earthquake එනවා. එතකොට earthquake එකකදී මොකද වෙන්නේ? මුළු බිල්ඩින් එකම swing වෙනවා මේ ස්ප්‍රින්ග් උඩ. Nothing happens to the building. What have they done? They have built the resiliency to accommodate some level of earthquakes to the total building. එතකොට මේකේ මොඩල් එකක් හදලා ඒ මොඩල් එක උඩ මේ වගේ බොඩ්ලි මොඩල් එකක් හදලා තිබුණා. මොඩල් එක උඩ බිල්ඩින් එක හදලා බිල්ඩින් උඩ වතුර වීදුරුවක් තියලා මේක ස්විං කරලා අපිට පෙන්නුවා. Nothing happens to the glass of water. Now this is how they are incorporating the capability to the building to accommodate some level of earthquakes. And this is called resiliency. Now, in the case of resiliency, Japanese are basically culturally resilient. You must have heard about or you must have learned about Hofstede's studies on the cultures. Hofstede studies on cultural aspects. So one of the aspects of the Hofstede's cultural studies, there are 5 dimensions: individualism versus collectivism, like that. Then another one will be was actually avoidance of uncertainty. So one is individualism. ඒ වගේ පහක් තියෙනවා. Individualism versus collectivism. Another one is uncertainty avoidance. Uncertainty avoidance. මේ දෙකෙන්ම ජැපනීස්ලා ඉන්න එක පැත්තක. Individualism versus collectivism, Japanese are basically, they practice collectivism. That is their culture. Teamwork is one of the factors in their culture. Uncertainties avoid කරනවා කියන එකත්, that is also in the Japanese culture. Yeah. Avoiding uncertainties. That means resilience is built into the culture. දරා ගන්න පුළුවන්. ඒකනේ බලන්න, if you analyze the Olympic games tables, most of the team games are won by Japanese and Chinese. Both these countries have the collectivism in their cultures. Individual games, maybe the USA and UK kind of countries, because they are individualized countries. They are in their culture, individualism is there. Now, when Japanese plan something, they have the plan A. At the same time, they have the plan B and plan C as well. Why? If plan A goes wrong, they are ready to implement plan B. That means they want to achieve the goal. They are trying to avoid the uncertainties. Therefore, they have plan A and plan B and sometimes plan B as well. Chernobyl nuclear power disaster, nuclear station disaster happened about 40, 50 years ago. But still in Russia, in that area, you get alpha, beta, gamma rays emitted to the sea. So fishing is prohibited still in that area. But Kobe nuclear power plant got blasted due to a tsunami. Within 6 months, they recovered because they had the plan A and B just implemented. Uncertainties are avoided faster. So that is the level of resilience that you have to develop. As a person also, you should be able to. සමහර අපි දන්නවා අපේ organizations වල ඉන්නවා පොඩ්ඩ ගැවෙන්න බෑ පහුවෙන්දට වැඩට එන්නේ අස්සලා යනවා අම්මා තාත්තා කියන ඔබ එක එකගේ මැනුම් අහන්නේ ගෙදර ඔය වැඩට යන්න එපා ගෙදර හිටපන් බම්බොට කන්න දෙන්නම් කියලා. They will never learn to face situations and develop themselves. අම්මා තාත්තා කල් develop කරලා තියෙන resilience නෙවෙයි, just mollycoddling them, and they have built people that they don't have the energy to face situations and challenges. That is why Europeans, they develop children, build resiliency, and they try to basically build them individually and independence. පොඩි ළමයෙක් වැටුනහම නැගිටවන්න එන්නේ නැහැ. ළමයා නැගිටලා එන්න ඕන. So like that, they are building resiliency to the personalities as well. So you understand the risk factor and the resiliency. So then you have to develop the risk mitigation strategies. Risk mitigation strategies. So in supply chain, then it is the process. What is risk management? It is a process then of measuring and finally assessing. You are measuring and assessing the risk levels of each and every risk factor. Then develop how to mitigate the risk factor. So that is risk management. Process of measuring and assessing the risk factors identified and developing strategies to manage the risk. And that is what is happening in risk management plans. So in risk management, therefore, risk assessments, in managing risk, you are balancing the probability of demand and the likely or the probability, that means the likelihood of happening it, and the other side supplying it. You are balancing the probability of demand, the likelihood of reliable supply, and allocation of resources to projects, to programs, or continuous supply. So it can be new products, new conditions, new markets, totally existing markets, totally disruptive market, whatever it is, you are analyzing the risk factors and making risk factors tolerable. So there are different sources of risk factors and forms of risk factors. So practically you have now even last week, one of the restaurants in Talavatuga where I'm living caught fire and 3 people died. A small joint. In the last 6 months, if you take that, there are quite a few organizations which caught fire. So there are industrial plant fires there. You might lose sometimes your own creations, intellectual property. You are faced with, in certain cases, work slowdowns, strikes, work stoppages, protest. On top of that, you have Ditwa and other natural disasters. You have today, even the central bank has been attacked by hackers, cyber threats, cyber vandalism, geopolitical issues, credit card issues, demand changes, and supply market changes and price crash downs, like what happened with the crude oil issue. All these are risk factors and different forms of risk factors. Here you can see risk factors. We can categorize it sometimes risk factors which are controllable and which are uncontrollable. Some risk factors you will be able to control. Some risk factors you will not be able to control. But when the risk factors are controllable, when the risk factors can be controlled or controllable, risk factors will be known. Some risk factors may be known and unknown. Known risk factors. Api hitamu, we have a supplier. Generally in the past, whatever the products he supplies, the quality was bad. But still sometimes we have to buy because no other suppliers maybe don't perform, so whatever the reasons, we have to buy in certain cases. But when you know this supplier's quality is bad and still you have to buy, you will be able to control. Why? How? Maybe you are sending your quality supervisors to supplier's factory and check whether quality parameters are okay. Before they ship the shipment, you ask your quality controllers to go and check. Samples can be checked and they can approve the shipment before it is shipped to you. So you are controlling the supplier's quality because you know there is a risk factor, supplier's quality may be bad. When you receive the shipment also, maybe you are taking another sample and you are testing to see whether it is okay before you send it to production. So That type of risk factors you can control because you know it is a known factor. When it is a known factor, you can control. It is controllable. When the risk factor is known, when the risk factor is known, it is controllable. So some execution problems, forecast inaccuracy, suppliers performance, market changes, kind of things. Maybe it is informed in advance that there will be a strike in the port. So you know these factors to some extent, then you will be able to make some arrangements to control. You'll be able to make some arrangements to control. Just give me a second, getting a call. Okay, sorry about it. So when you go up, what will happen to the known factor? So when you're going up on this list of risk factors, when you go up, you can see the known factor is fading away. It becomes totally unknown. You don't know when the next epidemic will be hit. We never expected suddenly Donald Trump to attack Iran with airship. We never expected Ditwa. So when it comes to these factors, it is totally unknown. Until it comes, you don't know. But when it is unknown, it is changed from controllability to uncontrollability. It becomes totally uncontrollable. You can't control Ditwa. You can't tell Ditwa, don't go to Soranatota. They are very innocent people. Don't create landslides over there. Go away කියලා කියන්න බෑ. Tsunami එකට කියන්න බෑ එන්න එපා. Totally uncontrollable when it is unknown. But when you identify, if you can identify some risk factors, maybe you're building a building in Soranatota and if you can identify some of these factors, if you can predict there'll be a labor strike, if you can predict the supplier's quality is bad, or if it is proved in the past, you can take actions to control. But when it comes to Ditwa kind of a natural disaster, you can't control. You can't control. Then the impact will be very high. Now, when you can control in this particular area, impact will be low. But when you can't control this area, impact will be very high. And even today, we don't know when can we travel from Colombo to Kandy by train. That is the level of impact. How many bridges, how many lives, how many resources, different types, maybe buildings. The impact is, I think government has assessed it somewhere around $10 billion or something. I can't, exactly, I can't remember the figure, but the government has roughly assessed the damage of Ditwa. So you should be able to then, in managing, if you can identify some risk factors, you should be able to develop some strategies to mitigate as well. And then it is a matter of implementation and getting it, manage the implementation. So some factors, that known factors, customer reactions, competitor reactions, supplier reactions, government reactions. So these factors may be known factors, then you will be able to assess it, identify it, and take action. There are about 5 sources of risk factors. What are the 5 sources of risk factors? You have suppliers risk factors coming in. You have suppliers risk factors. And at the same time, you have then processors risk factor, your own organization, your own processors. Demand level risk factors, like what happened to crude oil. OPEC decided to release all the oil stocks. Prices crashed from 146 to $32. Demand is the same. Or demand is increased suddenly, prices will be increased. And your network, your supply chain network risk factors and environmental risk factors. So these are the 5 sources of risk factors. And so I'm not going to go into details. Then you have demand risk factors, volatility, short life cycles, innovative competitors. So like that, you have process risk factors, quality issues, sourcing issues, lengthy setup times, manufacturing efficiency issues. You have supply risk factors, key suppliers. Suppliers are having different issues. Quality suppliers, quality issues, and lead time issues. Then you have network risk factors, poor visibility, inappropriate rules and regulations and new laws introduced by various countries, bullwhip effect kind of issues. And you have natural disasters, maybe tax issues, the duties, quotas, the regulatory issues, terrorism, natural disasters, and different levels of environmental risk factors. So how do you manage the risk then with all these risk factors? Then this is the risk management part. First one is you need to understand the risk context. What are the risk factors? I'm having this particular supply chain and I'm going to launch a product. I'm going to introduce a new product. I'm going to develop a new product. In this new product development process, what are the risk factors? So you should be able to understand the risk factors and classify. Then you do this is the first one, understanding the risk factors. Then come to the second one, it is the risk evaluation. Each and every risk factor you will be evaluating in terms of likelihood and impact. Likelihood and impact. There is another third element brought to what extent it can be controlled. Ability to control the risk factor. The ability to control the risk factor can control කරන්න පුළුවන් නම් impact එක අඩු වෙනවා ඒකයි. So we are bringing the third element as well. So remember the third 3 elements. One is the probability, likelihood. Second is the severity or the impact. And the third one is the controllability. Once you identify and once you do the risk calculation, you will understand the level of each and every risk factor. Then you are treating the risk factors. The third one, that means you are developing strategies to manage. Then you are implementing the risk factors and you are managing, monitoring. When you monitor, sometimes things are not happening as you planned. So you have to manage. That is incident handling. So these are the 5 stages of risk management. 5 stages of risk management. And you ask the question, how to measure these risk factors? Now there are 3 areas we need to measure. One area will be measure the probability. The second area will be to assess the impact or the severity. Third area, whether it is detectable earlier. the detection. So these are the three areas that we'll be focusing when you are measuring the risk factor. And that is called SOD. Severity, occurrence, detection. Severity is the impact. Occurrence is the probability or the likelihood of happening. Detection is whether there is a mechanism to detect. That is the SOD. SOD equals then RPN, risk priority number. If you have understood, if you have identified 100 risk factors, if you have identified 100 risk factors, then you have 100 RPNs. SOD is 100 තියෙනවා. දැන් මේ 100 RPN අපි කරන්නේ, if you sort it from the descending order, highest RPN to lowest RPN, then you can identify the risk levels. RPN gives you some sort of indication about the risk level. දැන් මේක මනින්නේ කොහොමද? අපි හිතමු severity. දැන් severity මනින්න ඕන. එක respect එකක් අරගන්නවා. අපි හිතමු floods. දැන් floods මේ පාර කොච්චර එනවද? So we can contact meteorological department and various other institutions, and we can have an understanding. අපි දන්නවා මේ මාසේ ගම් වතුර ගලනවා. මේමයි මාසේ ගම් වතුර කොච්චර ගලනවද? අපි හිතමු පාරට අඩි 3ක් ගම් වතුර ගලනවා. අපි have for the information. And එතකොට අපි then we can identify, assess the risk factor, impact, severity. පාරේ අඩි 3ක් ගම් වතුර. පාරේ අඩි 3ක් ගම් වතුර කියන්නේ මිනිහෙකුට පයින් යන්න එන්න බෑ. Product lorries වල, if you have that level of lorry, yes. But maybe movement of people will have to hire boats or hire tractors. Then what is the rank? So 1 to 10 scale, we are going to evaluate this particular risk factor Gangatura now. It is not minor, maybe minor Gangatura less than 1 feet. We can manage. But 3 feet Gangatura, therefore, it is moderate maybe. So we are giving a score 1 to 10 scale 5 or 6. And accordingly, we will be developing the risk treatment. මොකද්ද කරන්න කියන එක. ඒතර impact severity එක 1 කියලා කියන්නේ no impact. ගම් වතුර නැහැ. පොඩ්ඩක්වත් නැහැ. Very slight, maybe 1 feet kind of flood. Slight maybe 3 feet and minor 4 somewhere, and 5 කියන්නේ moderate maybe 3 feet, 4 feet ගම් වතුර. ඊට වඩා වැඩි වෙනකොට 6 feet, 7 feet, 8 feet ගම් වතුර වෙනවා නම් maybe high level of severity, and maximum severity maybe අඩි 20ක් 30ක් ගම් වතුර වෙනවා නම් 10. I hope you understand now how to measure the severity. Did I answer your question?
Yes, sir. That
Yes.
means predefined, we have some predefined criteria, no?
Yes, we
Kind
have
of.
to have a predefined scale. Based on that scale, if you have identified 50 risk factors, all 50 risk factors are basically gauged as per the scale we have decided.
Okay, sir.
Is that
So,
very clear?
excuse me, sir. And based on this one, the risk levels are categorized as a low, high, medium, likewise, sir.
Yeah, you can categorize. It is totally up to you. So this is one of the examples only. You can develop your own criteria based on your experience and the industry. That is up to you.
Okay.
Is it clear? So this is severity. So how would you measure the occurrence then? Probability. So if it is 1, maybe totally unlikely. Tsunamiyak එන්නේ නැහැ. මේ පාර ගම් වතුර එන්නේ නැහැ. Occurrence 0 or occurrence 1. ගම් වතුර definitely එනවා. අඩි 20ක්. definitely ගම් වතුර එනවා. occurrence 10. එතකොට as per your investigation knowledge, you can place it whether it is 1 or 2 or 3 or 10 or 5, whatever it is. That is the occurrence then. දැන් අපි කිව්ව මේ දෙක විතරයි අපි vulnerability එකේදී ගත්තේ severity and the occurrence. But then we introduce the third factor also, whether we can detect it. පළවෙනි පාර 2005 සුනාමි ආවහම we never had a detection system. සුනාමි කියන්නේ මොකද්ද කියලාවත් දන්නේ නැහැ සුනාමි එනකම්. Then lot of people lost, I think officially about 65,000 people lost their lives. Unofficially, sometimes people say it is about 100,000. But lot of lives, whether it is 65,000 or 100,000, and lot of property damage as well. But if we get a tsunami today, now we have installed tsunami detection systems. The world has a separate communication systems in terms of tsunami. Therefore, if the tsunami occurred in Sumatra nowadays and it will take 4 to 5 hours to come to Sri Lanka, in the meantime, we will get the news. And we have decided all those areas, tsunami paths are marked, assembly points and assembly places are developed, tsunami drills have been done and people have been trained. I don't think ඔය පිස්සෙක් වගේ මිනිහෙක් නැත්තම් කිසිම මිනිහෙක් අද සුනාමියක් ආවොත් ජීවිතේ නැති වෙයි කියලා. මොකද they know where to go, what valuables to take, and they have to leave all the other belongings aside and run to the places where they have been designated. So nobody will be losing lives. But you can't control the tsunami. Although it is detectable that 5 hours ahead, if you know that a tsunami will be coming, but still you can't control. Tsunami definitely එනවා. Otherwise, on the bank or on the the beach, if you have developed some barriers, concrete barriers, and with rocks and all, then you will be able to control to some extent. But there is no guarantee that you will be able to control. Therefore, property damages, you can't stop 100%. But you can save lives. Now, when you don't have a detection mechanism, total destruction is there. But when you have a detection mechanism, you will be able to save some lives. Therefore, impact will be less. Now you can see detection එකකින්ද impact එක අඩු වෙන්නේ කොහොමද කියලා දැන් දන්න. Because it can be detected earlier. And you will take some control actions of the people and the other resources. So therefore detection ranking එක ගන්නකොට ඔක කියන්නේ අනිත් පැත්තට. You can see detection ranking 1 කියලා කියන්නේ extremely likely and extremely unlikely. I think this is mixed. මේක ඇවිල්ලා probability එකත් එක්ක එන්නේ. So occurrence. නෑ පොඩ්ඩක් yeah. So මේ explanation එක හරියටම නෑ. ඒතකොට occurrence එක කියලා occurrence and detection ranking එක එනකොට detectable නම් ඒක detectable නම් impact එක අඩු වෙනවා. ඒතකොට detectable එක හරිය නෑ. detectable නම් මේක 1. It can be detected. It cannot be detected නම් it will be 10. මොකද if it cannot be detected, impact will be high. If it cannot be detected, impact will be high. Severity will be high. Now you are coming to SOD here. For each and every risk factor, you calculate the risk factor severity in 1 to 10 scale. You calculate the severity. අපි හිතමු severe 8යි. Then you calculate the occurrence. මේක නියත වශයෙන්ම වෙනවා 9යි. but it can be detected. Therefore, the severity can be less. It can be detected. So therefore, therefore detectability 2. Now you can see 8 into 9 into 2 is the RPN number. Likewise, if you have identified 50 risk factors, for all risk factors, you will be calculating the SOD, severity into occurrence into detection, and that is the RPN. Then you have, after calculating this, after analyzing all the risk factors, this is the assessing stage. After calculating the risk factors, you will be sorting it on the descending order of the risk factor. RPN එකේ. ඒතර risk එක very high ඒවා උඩ තියෙනවා. ඊළඟට moderate risk එක අඩු ඒවා පල්ලෙහාට එනවා. Then for these set of risk factors, high risk factors, you must have developed strategies to mitigate. Maybe less risk factors you can neglect. Let them come and go. And this is how you will be managing the risk factors. There is another tool developed based on this, which is called FMEA, Failure Mode Effect Analysis. Failure Mode Effect Analysis. Now, these are some learnings then, risk factors and the total spent and what level of strategies that you will be developing. So likewise, you have risk management strategies. You can you use different types of tools, failures, the levels and all. So the risk management in supply chain, it should be basically a thing that will be incorporated into the culture. මේක සමහරක් වෙලාවට මේ අපි at the beginning, maybe for serious projects and all, new product development, maybe launching a product like that. For serious ones, you will be doing this formally. You will have a risk management team develop and train on these lines, and they will be doing the risk assessment, partly risk management. Or when you develop it quickly, when you get the practice, sometimes in your mind, you will be doing all these things very fast. You will be doing it in your mind. So the management of risk factors, there are some strategies, different strategies introduced in different scenarios. There are five areas, no? You have the supply risk factor, operational risk factor, market risk factor, your demand risk factors, kind of, and then environmental risk factors. So the risk factors are coming from all these areas. If you have risk factors coming from suppliers areas, there are some strategies introduced, like if you have a single sourcing strategy for a product, total quantity is sourced from one supplier, single sourcing. If something happened to that supplier, and this is what happened exactly when Kobe in 1995, Kobe tsunami, it was a great hit. And most of the semiconductor factories were affected. Now, these semiconductor factories are developing and supplying semiconductors, chips, and motherboards to main computer suppliers, producers, and automobile suppliers. Toyota, Mitsubishi, all these automobile suppliers, they had to stop production of automobiles for about 1 week because semiconductor factories were affected with the tsunami and they couldn't recover faster. The total automobile industry was affected for about 2 weeks. The semiconductor supply was affected. And they realized the risk of one supplier, single supplier. So never implement this strategy. it is easier for you to manage. You have only one supplier and you are talking to the supplier, so you have better relationship. All these things are good, but if something happened to the supplier, your total industry will collapse. Therefore, single sourcing strategy is considered as a risky operation. At Brandix, so we never had single supplier strategy. Those who are from Brandix will know. We have minor and major suppliers. You have any product, you have minor and major. Major supply is given about 70% of the total volume. Minor supply is given about 30%. So in an emergency, if something happened to the major, you are shifted to minor. The risk is mitigated. At Bodyline, we have, at that time we had about 110 routes. So 110 buses are operated to bring workforce to the factory. In the night, we are bringing, in the night we are dropping them to destinations. In the morning, we bring them from destinations. 110 buses, 110 routes. But we distributed it to about 60% to one guy and another 20% to another guy and 20% to another guy. So there were three main contractors in terms of worker transportation. මොකද ඔක්කොම එක්කෙනෙකුට දුන්නා නම් if there was an accident or something, if drivers are basically not in good terms with this guy and having a strike or something, we are affected. To mitigate the risk factor, we shared it among three key suppliers, but out of that also we identified a key guy. About 60% of the transportation was done by that. So like that, you have minor, major. Another aspect will be to what extent you have implemented just in time and lean. Then you are working with low inventories. And that is also risk factor. Say if something happens to the supplier, you don't have any inventory because every 2 hours you are delivered for the next 2 hour production. එතකොට inventory ඇත්තෙම නැහැ. එතකොට මොකද වෙන්නේ? That is also risk factor. So you should be able to identify such cases, manage suppliers very closely in such a way that you will be identifying any disasters and very close communication. So these are certain risk factors that you have to manage differently in organizations. I discuss about the hedging strategy. Hedging is, it's a financial strategy, but there are a lot of calculations and analysis done before you decide to hedge a particular item with a particular supplier.
So there is a monopoly in the market. We don't have option other than single sourcing, right?
Yeah, then no choice than single sourcing. But in such a situations, you need to be able to develop a very close relationship with the suppliers. Even in apparel industry, we have similar situations. Say sometimes there was a program supplier, the customer nominated the supplier as DuPont. There's a particular reason for that. Because for that particular program, supplier has developed the fabric with DuPont. Only DuPont is producing fabric for that particular program. If you take, that is the only supplier in the world. That is the only supplier because they are the people who develop that fabric. In such a situation, you don't have a choice. You have to buy. Another risk factor, maybe supplier risk factor, Chinese New Year. If you are importing goods from China, end of February to beginning of March, like about 18 days, it is Chinese New Year. But the whole world knows Chinese New Year, and whole world, if you are buying from China, and people will be advanced in shipments from China to manage the Chinese New Year time. Because Chinese New Year, definitely they are closing. Nobody operates in that period because there's no people. People like the dormitories, their hometowns are far away, 2,000, 3,000 kilometers away. That is the only time they go home. For that also, they take sometimes 2 days to go home and come back to 2 days and 14 days leave, only 10 days at home for the whole year. Their wives are looked after by sometimes neighbors. So these are the risk factors then. Now, even the Chinese New Year will be a risk factor if you don't plan your deliveries to manage that period. That is why that period, if you go to Brandix, Hydra Monies, MAs kind of factories, their warehouses are full before the Chinese New Year because they have advanced the shipments and brought required quantities to manage the New Year period as well. Because they know very well no operation in that period. And because of that reason, what has happened, all the shipping lines are also busy because you have advanced shipments and all the shipping lines are also busy, and sometimes rates are also going high. So all these cascading effects will be there. Somebody wanted to ask a question, I believe. Yes?
No, sir, that you answered that what I want to ask question. That what to do at that time. I mean, if we have only single supplier, we need to do some advance order in some items. We need to ready.
Some level of, maybe it is advisable in certain cases to maintain some inventories. So when there is a signal supplier situation. So you have global risk factors. We never expected a ship to be obstructing the Suez Canal. Suez Canal එක නැවක් කියලා අපි හිතුවේ නෑ. We never expected the Red Sea issue. එතකොට අප්‍රිකාව වටේ නැව් ටික යුරෝපයට යන්න වෙයි කියලා හිතුවේ නෑනේ. So there will be about 16 days lead time added, and shipping cost is increased because of the added lead time and the route distances. So all these are disruption to existing supply chains. So those are becoming sometimes global risk. Middle Eastern war is a global risk factor. Russia-Ukraine war is a risk factor, and there are various other situations. So the different scenarios, and companies may be benefited or companies may be affected totally negatively. So in such a situations, maybe it is an advantage if you can develop multiple supplier strategies. Factors to consider in such a situation may be so variabilities, strategies, and with whom you will be sharing your shipments, whether it is possible to manage inventories. Sometimes you want to manage inventories, but you don't have enough warehousing space. In such a situation, what will you be doing? So the flexible strategies, maybe you might decide to shift the production. Sometimes shifting to sometimes to do offshoring, nearshoring from one region to another region. Long term, if you have identified some strategies, yes, those are some of the reasons why some Sri Lankans have shifted their production facilities to Bangladesh, production facilities to Haiti, production facilities to Ethiopia. I think, I don't think it is working now, but for some time it has been working. Or one of the critical things with today's technologies, it is information sharing. Now it has taken a new trend actually. It is not just information sharing with data analytics. And data analytics, the demand and the importance of data analytics also diluted. And today, to what extent you are using AI? All these things can be analyzed today with AI. even the risk factors. Even to identify the risk factors, you will be able to use AI. There are AI tools developed today to that extent. That is why today AI, the trainers of AI has a very big demand. Sometimes you will be able to, you are not able, not be able to take a date even to train your guys with AI. Maybe they give you data after 6 months. To that extent, they are busy. There's a very big demand. Most of the world, AI has become now another tool in the university curriculums. And it is taught day and night in many countries. And many people are using it. Already, the meetings are basically conducted with AI tools today. Analysis is done then and there. There are about 150 AI tools altogether. Specialized in some AI tools are specialized in supply chain management, specialized in banking, specialized in various disciplines. And ERP solutions like SAP, they are developing their new versions with AI. So AI will be the future. So if you want to be good analytical managers, learn the AI tools. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to manage the organizations. Already, most of the senior executives have learned AI and they are demanding AI to be used in their day-to-day reportings and analysis. So the global coordination worldwide, the leveraging the facilities and sometimes changing laws are changed. And the political leverage is one of the areas depending on the particular situations of the countries, and it is leveraged. So the global, integrations, global developments are at that level then. There can be product development, it can be purchasing, new product development, production scenarios, demand management, order fulfillment. All these are basically considered today when it comes to risk mitigation. Another aspect of risk mitigation will be the cultural differences. I told you the Japanese culture, collectivism, and uncertainty avoidance. It is affected in managing the risk factors and any other business matter. So what do you mean by culture? I think we have discussed, in certain cases, culture in detail. The cultural differences, expresses, gestures, sometimes language, differences. When you are working with China, it is different. When you are working with Japan, it is different. The roots of the culture will be the beliefs, artifacts, your values, all those things. And the customs. From different customs, customs is not the customs ordinance or the customs of the country. Customs mean the Sirit Turit. Custom also has been developed with that Sirit Turit. The regional products, international products, global products, and some products truly global, no modification done. Coca-Cola, jeans, Levi's, as it is sold worldwide. Or sometimes certain ranges may be customized. Then you are mitigating the risk factors, market risk factors and all. Okay, I hope you understand. Then coming to other levels of risk factors like fire and all, we have to mitigate, develop strategies differently then. So at the end of the day, it is not the strongest of the species and that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. So you should be the most responsive to change. Then no two words, you will be able to survive and you will be able to sustain the business. So that is basically about the risk factors, risk identification, and how to assess the risk factors, and develop strategies to manage risk factors. Any questions from this area? Anybody, any questions? Okay, so let's move on then. If you don't have any questions, we'll move to the other area. Just give me a second, please. Right. Can you see the presentation, please? Can you all see the presentation? I can't hear you.
Yes, sir, we can
Yes,
see.
sir. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. So let's try to understand how best you can design supply chain networks. So when it comes to supply chain networks, what are the strategies that you are considering and how best you will be able to design different levels of supply chains and supply chain networks at the end of the day. Give me a second, please. Right. So when you are designing supply chains globally, the factors or the impact of globalization is a factor that need to be considered then. So there are a lot of opportunities created by the world for products and services. As a result, the revenue may be growing. Cost reduction initiatives are there throughout the world today. Everybody tries to reduce the cost. It can be production cost, it can be transportation, it can be logistics, all the areas. And at the same time, risk factors are also mitigated as much as possible. But there are new risk factors you never predicted certain new risk factors may be emerging. So therefore, some supply chains may be very successful in delivering their products to different markets. Some supply chains, due to various obstacles and risk factors, may not be that the successful to that level. So one of the critical factors at the end of the day, supply chain is facing is the uncertainty of the demand. And due to many reasons, uncertainty of demand, sometimes if the demand is low, the total supply chain will be affected. And there will be different types of price drives, prices. Maybe buy two, get one free. Buy two, get third one 50% free. Like that, there can be different levels of price drives. Why? To ensure that at least the required quantities are sold at the end of the day, to maintain and to sustain the supply chains. So you can see some risk factors of supply chains. Percentage of supply chain impacted in this particular study coming from Sunil Chopra, supply chain management. Natural disasters is the biggest, 35%. Shortage of skilled resources. Now that is worldwide scenario. Still, everywhere there are a lot of new people are coming to the market from the world universities, but still you can see the skill shortage is about 25%, 24% of skill shortage. So still, there are a lot of opportunities for you all if you develop yourselves. Geopolitical uncertainty, 13%, like the volatility. Fuel prices, 37%. Currency fluctuations, 29%. Performance of supply chain partners, 38%, like that. The inflexible supply chain tech, 21%. Forecasting inaccuracies, about 30%, like that. There are different impacting these risk factors. These are global risk factors actually. This is the level of impact. And this shows other way around. For many people, there are opportunities even to capture these markets based on these risk factors. That is an opportunity created then in the market. So one of the decisions that supply chain partners will be taken or have been taken in the past, and will still there will be decisions around offshoring. The offshoring decision, one of the critical things that should be analyzed is the total cost factor. So there can be, by offshoring, there can be comparative advantage. Maybe your competitors are not, not near, or they are not there in the country that you have focused. Therefore, to serve that particular market, you can have a production center in that market, and that will be an added advantage. Definitely, that there's a comparative advantage when it comes to competitors. But you have to definitely analyze it properly and quantify the benefits. You can't just take the decision. You have to quantify and see how much of profit and what is the profit margins, what are the cost reductions that we will have, and what future factors, positive factors are there for us to settle down the offshoring facility in a particular country. Now, maybe you are working in such companies. You may be working in such companies. Somebody has offshoring production in your factory. There are a few reasons for offshoring, and offshoring will not be working properly. Unit cost focus. If you are focusing only on the unit cost, forgetting about the total cost implication, then you will fail, because unit cost may be low, but when you added other cost factors, the total cost factors, it will be high. And critical risk factors cannot be ignored. Critical risk factors, the risk analysis in this situation is quite important. The total cost, how it will be impacting in terms of offshoring. You can see different performance dimensions here: order communication, supply chain visibility, raw material cost, unit cost, freight cost, taxes and tariffs, supply chain lead times, different transportation costs, warehousing, decentralized or centralized distribution centers cost. So activity impacting the performance here will be the order placement, scheduling and expediting, sourcing of raw materials. Sometimes sourcing will have a lot of issues. Maybe your factory is one place and you will not be able to get the material from that region even. Production quality control and different modes of transportation. This is also killer. Different modes of transport. Sometimes you will not be able to get down the shipment from one mode of transportation to your factory. So they'll have to combine 2-3 different modes of transportation. The taxes and tariff definitely impacting when your shipments are crossing the borders. When your shipments are crossing the borders, that is where the impact of imports and exports when you cross the borders. Your tariff will be different. When you're exporting from one country to another country, export duty is also there. Sometimes from some country, even from instance, example, Sri Lanka. Definitely your import duties will be there. And so many other charges. And also supplier lead times, order communications, customs, transportation, all these will be affected. So impact to offshoring, order communication, order placement, more difficult sometimes, maybe differences in languages even playing a key role. Supply chain visibility may be poor could go either way depending on the material sourcing when it comes to raw material cost. Higher freight cost definitely when it comes to freight charges. Border crossing may be high or low. Lead times may be increased and poor forecast. Higher inventories are resulted in, and inventory management cost will be huge. Stock holding cost will be huge. So when you take the decisions, it is paramount important that you are considering all these total cost factors, and there are some more than. Sometimes you are getting caught to minimum order quantities, inventories, working capital. So that is why WAP is important, working capital, and stock outs in certain cases. So all these will be impacting on offshoring, most of the cases, increase in the cost. Therefore, the offshoring decision should be a decision of the total cost. The global supply chain, if you take with offshoring, what has happened, the length and the duration, maybe shipping length and the duration of information, products delivery, even sometimes cash flows have been increased. Along with that, not only they have been increased, the complexities, other complexities. Sometimes you are not getting people complying to the compliance standards because, in offshoring situations. That compliances are key thing today because there are restrictions. You can't do any amount of overtime. So when you do any amount of overtime, sometimes you will not be at home. Your family is not balanced. You have that kind of situations, different other complexities. And you will be spending sometimes a lot of money to do audits and managing those complexities. So you never expected, not budgeted. And tracking them and addressing them will be an issue and costly affair. So therefore, some risk factors again increased. So therefore, you have to be very careful, and consideration should be for the total cost, not the unit cost. So these are some of the elements that you would be considering when you calculate the total cost factor. Prices of the suppliers, definitely. So not only the prices, the landing cost, what will be the insurance, what will be the damage and all that, the margin kept, what will be the freight charges, what will be the handling charges, agent charges, port charges, terminal charges, on top of the supplier's price. And terms and conditions and different terms and delivery cost, as I explained. We don't know what time, you might order it from FOB, but no insurance then. Then you'll have to get insurance separately. Or you can ask the supplier to organize insurance and he will get hold to a world-renowned insurers. They will be charging thumping money even to come and inspect if something happens. And they will not be paying you if it is below their threshold. Some insurers like that. If the damage is less than $15,000, they will not pay. To come and inspect also, they might charge 10,000 rupees, $10,000. So you have a double hit then. You are not get the claim for the damage also, and on top of that, you have to pay for the insurers to come and inspect also. To avoid such, you can organize the shipment FOB and have your own agent. So these are some strategies that people can organize to mitigate the risk factors in these kind of deliveries. Inventory and warehousing. Sometimes you'll have to build your own warehousing, or it can be outsourced to third-party organization, 3PL. Cost of quality, customer duties, cost of risk, procurement staff, the broker fees, agent fees, infrastructure, tooling, exchange rates may be different. their impact, and the changes of the nowadays you can see the rupee is devalued and dollar is appreciated. It is revolving around maybe 330, 340 today. But what are the losses then? How it will be impacting to the total cost? So need to understand all these when you decide offshoring. So the global supply chains, when you are designing, therefore risk factor is one of the critical factors that you will have to accommodate. So global supply chains, there are so many disruptions as we have already discussed. There are natural disasters and natural environmental risk factors, labor disputes, terrorism. There will be delays, maybe poor quality issues, system risk factors, cyber attacks, system integration issues, breakdowns, and forecasting risk factors also, sometimes the inaccurate forecast. The forecasting error is huge then. And short life cycles and small customer bases and customer markets are getting saturated very fast. So all these are risk factors in terms of global supply chains. Sometimes intellectual property, procurement, receivables, inventory, capacity. So you have all these risk factors. Please read this. So when you are designing, therefore, a good network, you can't forget, you have to analyze all these risk factors if it is applicable and take decisions. So therefore, global supply chains should generally use a combination of some tool which can be evaluated the risk factors rigorously and develop strategies to mitigate. So the risk management in global supply chains, the risk mitigation strategies, maybe increase the capacity, focused on low-cost areas. You can increase the capacity there. Maybe a decentralized model sometimes. Or you have to build centralized capacity for unpredictable demands. You increase the capacity by building the capacity. And some suppliers get redundant suppliers. More redundant suppliers, basically more redundant supply for high volumes products. Low volume, less redundancy. Centralized redundancy for low volume. And manage the working capital cost accordingly. Otherwise, there should be an end to these initiatives as well. Also, one of the critical things that how best you will be able to increase the responsiveness, favoring the cost over the period of time, then favor responsiveness over the cost. Responsiveness, very critical. Otherwise, you will not be able to manage the risk like bullwhip effect. So increase inventory, increase flexibility as we discussed, maintain some stocks, aggregate demand, all the demands for a particular period, increase sourcing capacities. So these are some strategies that you will be able to. So the three broad risk factors or categories, maybe new product, flexibility, mix or volume flexibility. Ability to operate then profitably at different levels of output when you increase the volume. So those are some of the strategies that you would be able to develop when it comes to mitigating the risk factors. So flexibility in terms of risk factor management and improving and designing the supply chains need to accommodate. Sometimes the supply chain may be agile. So agility may be a factor. You have to consider how best you will be able to change your production and other things as per the requirements of the customer demands, market demands. It is beyond flexibility then to what extent the supply chain should be agile with the demand uncertainties, longer lead times, And coordination, as we discussed last week, will be more difficult in such situations. So when the supply chains are flexible, when supply chains are demanding agilities, changing effective manner, producing products as per the requirements of the market demands, demand fluctuations are still there, then how best we will be able to supply such markets. So those are some of the things when you are developing and designing supply chains you need to consider. Now, sometimes you have this discounted cash flow analysis, evaluated as a sequence of cash flows over the period of time. Discounted cash flow, not standard. And many, I don't know, in many Sri Lankan organizations, they still don't use discounted cash flows. And therefore, they don't see the real picture. You need to consider then weighted average of working capital kind of strategies to decide discounted cash flows and the discounted rates. And need to focus on maybe payback periods and various other, when you are calculating discounted cash flows, that is net present value. I hope you have learned these concepts and theories in other subject areas. When it comes to costing and all, the project evaluations and all, you're calculating the discounted cash flow and calculate internal rate of return kind of the indicators and payback periods with the discounted cash flow to decide what you should be doing to take the decisions correctly. So there's an example given here, a discounted cash flow. I'm not going to go into details. So decision trees, methods and all. I will avoid because it takes a lot of time then. Anyway, I'll be sharing this presentation so you'll be able to go through it. There are the decisions on offshoring, onshoring and all. Anyway, so that is about in terms of theory. So the other area, with the calculations, they have shown the applications. So when you are designing global supply chain networks, you understand to what extent these global risk factors should be considering. Okay, let me change the presentation to another area quickly. We have been assigned so many areas. Just give me a second, please. So what are the things that I would like to focus here when it comes to supply chain designing? You need to develop then products and services. So when it comes to designing of products, it is a different strategy. And when it comes to designing of services, it is different. So when it comes to, designing of products and services, you use different tools. If you focus on designing services, so it can be a bank, it can be a hospital, it can be a supermarket, retail outlet, railway station, or even an airport, port, new terminal to the existing airport. So all these are service generating points and service design initiatives. So the products and design, services when it comes to designing. So good products and services, basically, the designs are important. Otherwise, you will not be able to develop a good product or good service. So design part is quite important. And there are so many strategies that are used. The people who are designing products and services, the design should be considered one of the critical things in the designs interactively, to what level the things are getting interacted in between the two. How should interactive design can be managed in these situations? Sometimes the main area or the critical factor for sustainability will be some of these factors then. When it comes to designs, product and service, critical points that need to be considered will be definitely cost. At what cost you are going to complete the products? What is the quality level demanded by the market? It is not that you are trying to give them the best quality. Best quality is not the right quality always. It is the quality that is demanded by the customer. That is the quality that they want for that particular market. So therefore, you have to give that quality. If you try to give a better quality, cost will be increased. And you will not be able to match the price then. How much? What is the time frame? Time to market? What level of customer satisfaction do you expect and competitive advantage? And what kind of competitors and what are their prices? What are their quality levels? All these need to be considered. So when it comes to product and service design, these are some factors very closely you have to monitor. So what do you mean by product or service designing? You are translating customer requirements and customer wants and needs to product and services. So that is the transformation. So you have an idea, customer has given you an idea, you are converting it to a design which can be implemented. Or customer has given you an idea about a product and you are converting that particular concept to a tangible product. Then product can be basically sent so many times, pen down and decide and then market. So refine existing products and services, that is one thing. In the case of developing new products and services that you would do. Formulate quality and cost targets, construct and develop prototypes and test it. And finally, it goes through a funnel actually. It goes through a funnel. That is called the design funnel there. A good design will have some of these characteristics. When it is a good design, customers will be happy. You are satisfying the customers with the product or service. And you are communicating the purpose of the product or service. Financial rewards, yes, good sales. It may be a cash cow to the organization. The product or service should be bringing rewards, financial rewards to the organization if it is a good product or service. And reliability is good. And definitely you will be better than the competitors and there will be a competitive edge. It reduces overall cost if it is a good design. So design in products or services, it is basically initially what you have is a concept in somebody's mind. It is a concept in somebody's mind. And you are converting this concept to a product or service. And that is where the value is added. Then you are packaging it as per the requirements and offering it to the market. Then the concept converted to a product or service. But it has to be articulated properly. The specification should be there. Specification should be communicated. We should be able to communicate specification. And what value proposition you are offering to the market. What value proposition at the end of the day. When you are designing the product, one of the critical things, you should be able to develop the specifications very correctly. There is one popular tool that we are using to decide the specifications of the product, which is called quality function deployment, QFD, or this is also called house of quality. House of quality. So we don't have time today, but this is a subject area that we have incorporated into the syllabus. So we should discuss QFD. We should discuss. I'll make sure that in the next session we are having, we'll allocate some time to discuss this QFD, quality function deployment. It is very important actually. Then only you will know how customers' requirements are transformed to specifications of the product or service. So that is a requirement. The customer might say, I want this, I want this, I want this and that. But how do you offer it? With what specifications is the engineer's version. So from the marketeer's version to engineer's version, when you walk through, when you develop the specifications, then specifications will be capturing what the customers wants. Definitely then you are meeting the customer requirements. So with that note, I'll stop the session here today. Please remember the next session, whatever the subject area, we have to discuss the quality function deployment. Otherwise, our knowledge seems to be incomplete. So you should be able to use this, maybe not in full, but at least bits and pieces of these techniques in your day-to-day office work, you should be able to use. Then only some kind of value you will be able to add to the organizations and the markets. Any questions from the area that we have done here today? Anybody, any questions?
So excuse me, sir.
Yeah, please.
So in the construction field, what kind of mitigation strategies can we use for with your experience of that? Because of in the construction field, we
It's
have
like this. What kind of construction you are referring to, please?
yeah, tank rehabilitation, like construction, yeah, tank rehabilitation.
You're referring to tanks, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So no, basically it is constructions, maybe mechanical and civil combined constructions. Those are. So you should be able to understand first of all the risk factors depending on the area. Sometimes depending on the location, it may be oil tanks, it can be water tanks, or it can be silos in a factory. If you go to Aralia Hall, there are 32 silos. Those are vertical storages. If you go to Lions Beer, there are so many silos to store rice, to store malt, to store.
So he is referring to which tank, sir? It is that water
Yes, sir.
storage?
Yeah, I mean water storage. Yeah, water tank. Well, yes.
Okay.
Well,
So like
canal,
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in such a situations, you first of all you should be doing the risk identification. So you should have a brainstorm with the knowledgeable people and identify all the risk factors. Then you can develop this risk assessment matrix. Maybe there's another tool that especially we need to discuss a little bit in detail the bits and pieces we have taken into what is called FMEA, failure mode effect analysis. Please go through some of the videos, YouTube videos on FMEA. In the FMEA only, you will see this the assessment number RPN, risk priority number equals to SOD, severity, occurrence, and detection. So this FMEA is a tool used by many engineers identifying and analyzing the risk factors with the RPN number. So their failure mode defect analysis, the three areas I showed you how to measure, that is the SOD area, severity, occurrence, and detection, 1 to 10 scale. I forgot one thing there. It is always 1 to 10 no, 1 to 100 no, that kind of a scale, starting from 1 only. Why now, knowing the factor that we don't have any probability, why can't it be 0? Why can't we develop the scale 0 to 10? Can somebody tell me? Why can't we develop the scale to be 0 to 10 instead of 1 to 10?
There is a multiplication, RPN calculated by multiplication of each item.
Exactly.
So if you put
exactly
0,
the point is, yeah. So if you, whatever the severity, what maybe severity is very high, severity may be 9. And if the occurrence is 0, even it is undetectable 9, the total product, when you multiply it will be 0. Therefore, remember, when you are developing these kind of scales, you have to avoid 0. So those are very simple, obvious reasons, but sometimes we do these mistakes. So when you are analyzing the risk factors for these tanks and all, especially you have to have some, knowledgeable people in the team, and brainstorming should happen, and to identify the risk factors in the related area. Then you can use these FMEA, RPN, all these tools to assess the risk factors and take appropriate action. So I don't have specific, the experience in the related to the WEV area, okay? But I believe, do we have anybody in the audience related to that area, having some experience? Okay, then, anybody, is having some, I definitely I should be able to do some research on that and give you some documents. Okay, anybody else, please? Anybody else? I can remember one story. I had one engineer in the irrigation department. One of my friends from Jaffna, one Dharma Balan. It also, I think, yeah, he's given transportation from the irrigation department, and මෙයා ඉන්ස්පෙක්ෂන් එකක් දාගන්නවා මෙයාගේ ඒරියා එක ඔය අනුරාධපුරයේ සමහර ඒරියාස් වවුනියා ඒවා ඇත්ත. ඒතකොට ට්‍රිප් එකක් දාගන්නවා ඉන්ස්පෙක්ෂන් වලට. දාලා ට්‍රිප් එක දවස් දෙක තුනක් ඉඳලා තව දවස් දෙක තුනක් ජැප්නා ගිහිල්ලා ගෙදර ගිහිල්ලා එනවා. එක ට්‍රිප් එකකට මටත් කතා කරා. එතකොට ඒ ඔෆ් වවුනියා they have requested some මේ වගා ලිං වගේක් කපන්න. වගා ලිං කපනකොට මෙයාගෙන් පර්මිෂන් එක එන්න ඕන. මේ ලිං කපන්නේ කොහෙද, කොච්චරද ගැඹුරව, අපසාරිය ඔක්කොම ලිං තියෙනවනේ. කොච්චර ඒකරේජ් එකකටද පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ, අරවා මේ ඔක්කොම ටික එනවා. දැන් මේ ලිඳ කපන්නේ කොහෙද? දැන් මෙයා ගිහිල්ලා ඒ ඒරියා එකේ පෙන්වන්න ඕන. දැන් මෙයා කොහොමද දන්නේ කොළඹ ඉඳලා මේ ලිඳ කැපුවහම වතුර එන තැන් යට ගලක් තියනවද මොනවද ඒව මොනවද දන්නේ නැහැනේ. මිනිහා පොඩි ටෙක්නික් එකක් පාවිච්චි කරනවා. මිනිහා ගමට ගිහිල්ලා ගමේ මිනිස්සු වගේ ඔය ලොකු ලෙවල් එකෙන් නෙවෙයි ගමට බහින්නේ, බොහොම සිම්පල් මෑන් කෙනෙක් විදියට ගමේ වයසක මිනිස්සු අල්ලගෙන කතා කරනවා. කතා කරලා ඒ මිනිසුන් ඉස්සරහට දාගෙන ඒ මිනිසුන්ට කියනවා බගාලිදක් කපන්න ඕන නම් මේ ඔයගොල්ලෝ පෙන්වන්නකෝ හොඳම තැන. ඒ මිනිසුන්ට ඒ ඒරියා එකේ නොලෙජ් එක තියෙනවා. ඒ මිනිස්සු දන්නවා උබුක් ගස් හොදට වැවෙන්නේ කොහෙද අරවද මේවා උණත පඳුරු වැවෙන තැන් උබුක් ගස් වැවෙන තැන් අරවා මේ මිනිසුගේ ගමේ නොලෙජ් එකෙන් ඒ මිනිසු කියන මෙන්න මේ හරිය කැපුවොත් නම් මහත්ය වතුර තියෙයි අරවා මේවා කියන. So then he used that same knowledge. Tanks නෙවෙයි even the beating is engineering. He is listening to people's customs, rituals. So sometimes some people take decisions in that manner. Okay, if you don't have questions, we'll wind up the session today. And remember, we need to discuss FMEA with the next. And also we have to discuss FMEA, of course, we almost discussed. You can watch some YouTubes. And you can watch some YouTubes on the other side, then quality function deployment, QFD as well. So
we have a session tomorrow, right?
Yes, I think we have a session tomorrow. Yeah, right.
Yes. 7:30 to 10. 7 to 10.
Yes. Tomorrow, yes. It is 7 to 10, no?
Yes, sir.
Oh, is it cancelled? No, cancel kare naha ne?
But we have not informed yet.
No, no, එක තියෙනවා මගේ දන්නේ for yourself. Yeah, I have marked. Yes. Okay, we can discuss it tomorrow. Thank you. Okay then. So thank you so much. So we'll meet tomorrow then. All the best till then.
Okay, so thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Welcome.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Night.
you.
Bye.
Good night.
Right. Bye-bye.